Have you ever looked at the world, at the grand sweep of history and just the relentless churn of current events and wondered, are there hidden hands, unseen forces kind of pulling the strings?
Hmm.
What if there's a master plan? Something unfolding over centuries, meticulously guiding everything towards, well, some predetermined outcome, often completely outside our awareness.
It's a question that, yeah, it resonates deeply with so many people, doesn't it? It invites us to look beyond just the immediate headlines, the surface narratives we get fed every day.
Right.
And today we're taking a deep dive into, well, an extraordinary collection of source material. It claims to lay bare precisely that kind of scenario, offers a pretty startling alternate history and future.
That's right. Our mission today is really to unpack what our sources call the anatomy of a global conspiracy, specifically focusing on the Genesis 6 conspiracy. We've pulled together excerpts detailing what these sources allege is a vast interconnected network. We're talking secret societies, powerful financial dynasties, ancient religious beliefs.
Right. All supposedly working together in concert towards a single predetermined global outcome.
And just to be super clear up front, our goal here isn't to say this is true or this is false.
Absolutely not. It's really to help you, our listener, quickly grasp the core assertions, the alleged connections within this, frankly, intricate and complex narrative.
It's a unique opportunity to recognize the patterns these sources claim to reveal, maybe gain insights that might otherwise remain hidden, beneath layers of history and misdirection.
We're basically here to be your guides through the claims themselves, helping you understand what the sources are asserting. That's the focus, not confirming or denying their validity.
Okay. So to set the tone for the, let's say, prophetic and conspiratorial nature of these sources, let's start with a pretty dramatic quote. It actually begins this very material from the biblical book of Revelation, chapter 17, verses 12 to 13.
Ah, yes.
It reads, "The 10 horns you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but who for 1 hour will receive authority as kings along with the beast. They have one purpose and will give their power and authority to the beast."
Wow. Yeah, powerful indeed. It immediately plunges you into this world of hidden power structures, apocalyptic predictions. It sets a very specific stage.
It really does. Okay, let's start unpacking this intricate narrative.
So the central thesis presented by our sources is, well, it's nothing short of breathtaking in its scope and its ambition.
Right.
They assert that there's a determined manifest destiny actively underway. The goal, to bring about a united global empire dominated by Luciferian religions.
And they call this chillingly a renewed Genesis 6 conspiracy.
Exactly, a renewed Genesis 6 conspiracy.
Okay, let's pause there. A renewed Genesis 6 conspiracy. That's a pretty heavy statement. For listeners, the original Genesis 6 story in the Bible talks about a time before the Great Flood.
Right, where the sons of God interbred with the daughters of men, leading to the Nephilim. Giants, powerful beings, depending on the interpretation.
So for the sources to call this renewed, it implies a return to, or maybe a continuation of, some ancient, almost primordial struggle or agenda.
Precisely. And this global empire they talk about, it isn't just some vague political concept in these writings.
Wow.
Now, the sources claim it explicitly aims for a new world order, which they dramatically state is, quote, ordained for this is the terminal generation.
Ordained. So it's not just happening, it's meant to happen, like it's cosmically preordained for our specific time.
That's the assertion. And according to these sources, this isn't just a secular or political ambition either.
Okay.
They argue that, quote, globalism is a heavy trench coat that is concealing its discriminating religious body devoted to rebellion and genocide.
Wow. Okay. Rebellion and genocide. So it's not just about unified governance. There's a specific spiritual or maybe anti-spiritual agenda underpinning it all.
That's the claim. This religious body, the sources contend, has very specific destructive goals that drive its entire operation.
So what are those goals? What does this religious body allegedly aim to destroy? And what kind of world would they build in its place, according to the sources?
The material is quite explicit on this. Its primary objectives, they state, are destroying both the right to own private property and the right to worship the true God.
Okay, so fundamental rights, as many understand them.
Right. From the source's perspective, this actively prevents government based on the protection of man's God-given rights to life, liberty, and property. The coming world government, they assert, will tolerate only the future harlot religion of Babel.
Harlot religion of Babel, that's a clear biblical reference, suggests a singular, corrupt, unified spiritual system.
Yes, one that would supplant all others. And fundamentally, they claim this new global order will be based on collective rights rather than individual ones, a total inversion of, say, traditional Western legal and philosophical ideas.
A complete inversion. Individuals subservient to the collective under this new singular religion. That's that's a chilling vision presented there. And how do they suggest this global empire is being built economically? They talk about something called progressive socialism. Sounds familiar politically,
Right.
but how is it framed here in this context?
They define progressive socialism as the, quote, opium for the mundane masses, implying it's a deceptive tool, right, to pacify and control the general population by promising collective welfare.
Right.
But what's really striking is their claim that this is merging with progressive capitalism, creating this hybrid economic model.
A hybrid, like a...
Akin to the contemporary Chinese oligarchy, they say, or even more starkly, Hitler's fascist Nazi regime.
Oh. Okay, that's an incredibly strong comparison, linking it to both China's system and the Nazis.
It is, and the comparison isn't made lightly in these texts. The sources are alleging this isn't free market capitalism, it's not pure socialism. It's a controlled, state-directed synthesis of both, designed, they claim, to serve the elite.
So what exactly do they pinpoint as the core principle behind this state-sponsored capitalism they describe? Are there specific examples they cite?
They explain the mechanism through what they call state-sponsored capitalism, or P3 ventures. That stands for public partnerships.
P3, okay.
They describe these as a means for selected private companies and corporations, i.e. oligarchies, to essentially finance, manufacture, and equally with the state, drive the agenda.
So it's not just government regulation, it's a deep collaboration.
A deep, often hidden collaboration, where powerful private entities become almost extensions of the state. Or maybe the state becomes an extension of their will, leveraging public resources, public authority to achieve these predetermined goals.
Right, a system where profit and power get concentrated, basically. Indistinguishable from state power.
Exactly. Not distributed through a genuinely free market. And this is where the sources deliver their ultimate warning. It's not presented as a metaphor, but as a chilling prediction of what's supposedly being orchestrated. Quote, "The end times will host a new global Nazi regime led by a new Führer and promising a new utopian millennium, which will lead to a new world war and a new Holocaust and end in a new apocalypse."
Wow. That's their stark ultimate prognosis for this alleged globalist agenda, a new global Nazi regime. Okay, so if that's the breathtakingly ambitious vision, the ultimate outcome our sources predict, who are the alleged architects behind it all? The sources point to this powerful hidden hand, an elite group they call Rex Deus organizations. What do these sources tell us about them?
These Rex Deus organizations, they're presented as the true masterminds, the core group driving this global conspiracy.
Right.
Their ultimate goal, as outlined in the material we have, is to install this false messiah onto the world throne.
A false messiah. Okay.
And the sources claim that to achieve this, the Rex Deus established, quote, an army of Masonic lodges around the world.
An army of lodges.
Which they refer to, interestingly, as Gentile Masonry. These lodges, from the source's perspective, act as blind agents, just furthering the seditious objectives of Rex Deus.
Blind agents. So the average Mason doesn't know.
That's the key detail here. The assertion is that the true Rex Deus objectives are hidden from most Freemasons. It suggests layers of deception, even within the supposed conspiratorial network itself.
Which brings us directly to Freemasonry. The sources are quite cutting. They call them cankerworms. Definitely not a compliment.
No, not at all.
So how do they describe the origins and spread of Freemasonry? How does it fit into this narrative of manipulation?
Well, the origins, according to these sources, are supposedly deeply rooted in esoteric traditions. They allege connections to Ishmaelism and Templarism.
Ishmaelism?
Yeah.
Like certain esoteric Islamic traditions?
That seems to be the implication, suggesting a lineage of hidden knowledge, a mystical stream from those traditions. And Templarism, of course, points to the Knights Templar.
The medieval military orders suppressed in the 14th century.
Right. The sources contend that after their suppression, the Templars didn't just vanish. They supposedly preserved secret knowledge, financial power, a hidden agenda, which eventually found its way into early Freemasonry.
The Scottish Rite, for instance, is said to have originated in Scotland with King James III. His title of Grand Master Mason was allegedly passed down to the powerful Sinclair family.
The Sinclairs, okay.
This lineage then supposedly spread with James VI Stuart, who became James I of England, and then through the rapid expansion of the British Empire and also the Jacobite movement in France.
So they place huge significance on Freemasonry's role in shaping modern history.
Immense significance. They claim the American and French revolutions were, quote, inexplicitly interwoven and completely influenced by Freemasonry.
Influenced how?
Designed not just for political freedom, apparently, but specifically to produce utopian republics that would, in time, bring about world government and the abolishment of Christianity.
Wow. So the very ideals of liberty, equality, fraternity that we often associate with those revolutions, especially the French one. What do the sources say about those? Are they genuine Masonic ideals?
They're described as Masonic words, yes, but here's the twist. They're presented as notions reserved for the manipulated lower brethren.
Manipulate. Yeah. The sources claim that the learned elders, the true enlightened adepts, at the very top of the Masonic hierarchy, view these lower-level members, the ones who genuinely believe in those ideals, as mere liberal utopian dreamers.
And what happens to these dreamers?
The chilling assertion is that these well-meaning, lower-degree Masons will eventually be arrested and then executed by the Antichrist.
Executed.
That's the claim. The sources even draw a parallel to the Nazi elimination of communists and pacifists in 1933, portraying it as a historical precedent for what awaits those deemed no longer useful.
It's intense. So the core belief of Freemasons, as depicted here, is what exactly?
It's that there's a determined manifest destiny to bring full about a united global empire dominated by Luciferian religions. That's the ultimate goal they're supposedly working towards, consciously or unconsciously.
That suggests profound deception within the organization itself. Humdrum members of the lower degrees are not taught the innermost secrets, while adepts purposefully lie through false interpretations. Almost Machiavellian.
It paints that picture, yes. Extreme manipulation.
And this internal secrecy, this web of lies. According to our sources, it wasn't just for control, was it? It was supposedly a deliberate infiltration by an even more clandestine group.
The Illuminati.
Right, the Illuminati. The enlightened ones, as the sources call them. How do they fit into this web?
Well, the Illuminati were founded by Adam Weishaupt in Bavaria, May 1st, 1776, a date often highlighted for its symbolism.
Okay, and their goals.
According to the sources, audaciously radical, to utterly destroy Christianity via their own religion of mysticism, overthrow all national governments, and abolish all private property. A comprehensive ideological and societal revolution, basically.
Okay, pretty huge goals for a group founded in the late 18th century. How did they supposedly gain such power and reach?
Through a masterstroke of infiltration, the sources claim, they infiltrated Freemasonry in 1782, though some sources in our material also suggest maybe 1777.
Okay, around that time.
And subsequently, exploited Freemasonry's worldwide network for their own New World Order agenda, eventually gaining what the sources describe as complete control of the organization.
So Freemasonry essentially became the operational arm for the Illuminati's grander scheme.
That's the narrative presented. And those who reach the level of perfection within these circles are called adept. They're initiated into the secret teachings of Lucifer the Light-Bearer, revealing that Luciferian underpinning of the alleged hierarchy.
Lucifer the Light-Bearer. We'll come back to that. And the funding.
Yes. The sources claim that Illuminati adepts are funded by 13 families, including the immensely powerful Rothschilds.
Rothschilds again.
Who have allegedly been plotting world government for thousands of years, implying this conspiratorial intent stretches way back through antiquity.
Fascinating. So Illuminati as the puppeteers of Freemasonry, ancient families pulling their strings. What about the Rosicrucians? Our sources describe them as the occult root. What did they uncover about their origins and influence?
Right, the Rosicrucians. Fabled to have been founded by a figure named Father Christian Rosenkreutz way back in 1378, several influential manifestos popped up in the early 17th century, introducing their ideas more widely.
But there's a question about Rosicrucius himself.
Yeah, the sources claim Rosenkreutz was likely a hoax, possibly orchestrated by Johann Valentin Andrea, who they assert actually published these works maybe as an allegorical exercise.
Interesting. But regardless of the origin story?
Regardless, Rosicrucianism is said to have profoundly transformed Freemasonry from operative to speculative, shifting its focus from, practical stone masonry and guilds towards philosophical, esoteric, mystical pursuits. The sources contend Rosicrucianism exercised the biggest influence during this critical transition, imbuing Freemasonry with its distinctive mystical occult character.
So they were key in that shift from craft to esotericism. And there's a claim about a connection to a prominent scientific institution. This is where things really start to merge.
Indeed. The sources assert, quite controversially, that Rosicrucians actually founded the Royal Society Invisible College with the help of Freemasonry.
The Royal Society, founded in 1660, one of the oldest scientific bodies.
Exactly. The sources contend its true purpose, from this conspiratorial view, was to build a House of Solomon, an idealistic temple for advancing science and knowledge envisioned by Francis Bacon, who himself is often linked to secret societies.
So a covert agenda, even within scientific progress.
That's the suggestion. Furthermore, Rosicrucians are strongly linked to alchemy, transmuting base metals, but also the esoteric search for the philosopher's stone, the elixir of immortality.
Right.
This connects them to ancient figures like Hermes, Thoth, the biblical Enoch, all associated with hidden wisdom.
And where do they sit in the hierarchy?
The sources explicitly position Rosicrucians as the apex of the Freemason-initiated hierarchy, the superior elect of the Illuminati, suggesting they represent the innermost, most enlightened, most powerful sucle within this whole alleged network.
Quite a pyramid. Rosicrucians at the top. And from this deep occult foundation, we move into Theosophy and the New Age movement. Closer to modern times.
Yeah.
Key figures here.
Helen Petrovna Blavatsky and Colonel Henry Steele Olcott, they founded Theosophy in 1875.
Blavatsky, right? Nietzsche unveiled the secret doctrine.
Exactly. Her voluminous works are described by the sources as synthesizing ancient mythology, Eastern mysticism, occult teachings, basically laying the philosophical groundwork for what became the New Age movement.
And the core philosophy of Theosophy, according to these sources.
It posits the existence of secret masters, or avatars, described as highly evolved men who've acquired divine power through reincarnation and spiritual development.
Okay.
These masters are said to form the Great White Brotherhood, which is presented by the sources as the, quote, hidden government of the world, guiding human evolution from behind the scenes.
A hidden government. And what about Lucis Trust? That name immediately flags the Luciferian theme, the light connection.
It does, and the sources highlight this connection explicitly. Alice Bailey, a prominent theosophist, founded Lucis Trust, originally named, get this, Lucifer's Press.
Lucifer's Press can't get much clearer than that.
Right. The stated purpose, from the source's perspective, was specifically to publish teachings supposedly channeled from her spirit guides, Kuthumi and Jewel Kul primarily.
And its connections today.
The sources explicitly state Lucis Trust is plugged into the highest levels of Freemasonry and all globalist organizations, suggesting it functions as a kind of spiritual and philosophical hub for the wider globalist agenda, disseminating the Luciferian worldview, influencing thought leaders within various global institutions. Even after changing its name, its publishing arm is seen as a key vehicle for promoting this light-bearer philosophy.
Okay, so we've explored this grand vision, the Luciferian New World Order, and the alleged architects, these layers of secret societies, Rex Deus, Freemasonry, Illuminati, Rosicrucians, Theosophists. But how does such an ancient, ambitious plan move from, the shadows into the very fabric of our daily lives?
Right, the practical application.
Our sources now turn to the instruments of control, the financial levers, political infiltration, the propaganda machine that allegedly makes this conspiracy a reality. Let's start with what they call the financial juggernaut, focusing on the Rothschilds and their allies.
The Rothschild family, yes. According to these sources, they hold a central, historically significant position in this financial control structure.
How so?
They contend the Rothschilds actually replaced the Templars as the first corporate financial giant of medieval Europe.
Replace the Templars. Okay, unpack that a bit.
Well, the Knights Templar, beyond crusading, are often described as the first modern bankers of Europe. They pioneered credit facilities, international banking, maybe even early checks.
Right, they were incredibly wealthy and organized.
So when the Templars were suppressed, the sources allege their immense financial power and secret knowledge didn't just disappear. It was absorbed, perpetuated by other entities, with the Rothschilds ultimately taking up this mantle. They claim the Rothschilds became the central bank funding the Freemasonry movement and, crucially, the Rex Deus agenda through their vast wealth and intricate network.
So they took over this hidden financial control from the Templars. How did they achieve such immense power? What was their strategy for securing this alleged end-time agenda?
The sources claim a strategic, far-reaching method. They managed to indebt all the royal houses of Europe by financing wars, extravagances,
Putting monarchs in their debt.
essentially placing every major European power in their financial thrall. This, from the source's perspective, secured the secret end-time agenda of Rex Deus.
And they didn't work alone.
No, their operations expanded through shrewd strategic alliances and a deliberate policy of intermarriage with other powerful banking families, like the Warburgs, the Schiff family, Kuhn-Loeb and Company, J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs.
Familiar names.
Right. This intermarriage, the sources emphasize, was key to keep the wealth and control within a close circle. Ensuring this immense financial power and its alleged conspiratorial purpose remained concentrated, hereditary.
And their reach wasn't just Europe, was it? The sources claim significant control over burgeoning American corporations, too. A truly global financial stranglehold.
Indeed. The Rothschilds are said to have funded a company in its infancy, Standard Oil.
Rockefeller Standard Oil.
Yes. The sources go so far as to state the entire Rockefeller empire owes its immense wealth and, crucially, its loyalty to the Rothschilds.
Wow.
They also allegedly financed other titans of the era: Edward Harriman, the railroad magnate; Andrew Carnegie, U.S. Steel. The sources allege this triumvirate, the Rockefeller-Morgan-Rothschild axis, systematically gained a stranglehold on American corporations and power, all supposedly working resolutely for the Rex Deus agenda, consolidating economic and political control.
That's a startling claim. Hidden connections between seemingly independent industrial giants and this wider network. What about infiltrating government and public opinion? The sources particularly highlight the Federal Reserve.
The Fed, yes. Despite being presented as governmental, it's described by the sources as a privately owned entity.
Privately.
Dominated, manipulated, and controlled, they claim, by Masonic Rex Deus globalist forces. To back this up, the sources list what they assert are the top 8 shareholders.
Who do they list?
Rothschilds, Bank of London and Berlin, Lazard Brothers, Israel Moses Seif, Warburg Bank, Lehman Brothers, Kuhn-Loeb, Chase Manhattan linked to Rockefeller interests in Goldman Sachs.
So the implication is the Fed serves private interests, not the public.
That's the core argument presented here, that it serves these powerful banking families and their alleged globalist agenda.
And beyond national central banks, what about international institutions like the IMF, the World Bank? How are they supposedly used?
These institutions, the IMF and World Bank, are presented by the sources as employing a sinister strategy to, quote, addict the victim on the credit narcotic.
Meaning?
Offering loans that nations eventually can't repay, leading to economic ruin. Once nations are in this vulnerable state, indebted,
They can be controlled.
the sources claim they're then coerced into accepting globalist policies for fear of being cut off from essential credit. It's portrayed as a method of economic slavery, forcing loyalty by making nations financially dependent, subservient to these hidden powers.
So the profits from these banks and institutions,
Yeah.
it's not just about wealth accumulation. It's used to influence public opinion, social structures. How does that supposedly work?
Through what they call tax-exempt foundations. The claim is that profits from the globalist banks are laundered into them, creating this massive, untaxed pool of capital.
Yeah.
These funds are then allegedly invested into other corporations that will further influence the global economy, expanding their reach. But crucially, these foundations are also used to influence and manipulate education and public opinion.
How?
By funding specific research, educational programs, media initiatives, they're portrayed not as philanthropic, but as tax shelters for this international banking cartel's wealth, all designed to fund and advance the world government agenda.
Okay, let's connect the dots to specific globalist organizations. The sources talk about an interlocking directorate. Who are the key players named here?
They list several prominent ones, arguing they're all intricately linked. First, the Council on Foreign Relations, CFR, created during World War I by Wilson Edward House,
Right.
described as the contemporaneous epicenter for the political world union. The sources claim its explicit aim is to bring about the surrender of national sovereignty.
Funded by?
Rockefeller, Morgan, those same powerful banking interests. Its members are alleged to have systematically infiltrated multiple U.S. administrations, ensuring a consistent pro-globalist foreign policy.
Then there's the Trilateral Commission. Another familiar name.
The Trilateral Commission, founded by David Rockefeller, Kissinger, Brzezinski in '72, allegedly aims to promote world government through encouraging economic interdependence, North America, Europe, Japan.
And its core belief, according to the sources.
The necessity of a global government, a global monetary system, and a global tax policy, presented as a mechanism to dismantle national economic barriers, foster a singular, centrally controlled global economy, serving the New World Order.
What about the Bilderbergers? Known for their secretive meetings.
The Bilderbergers. Founded 54 by Prince Bernard of the Netherlands, Lord Victor Rothschild. Described as the power elite from NATO countries. Highly confidential meetings, a secret agenda.
And their influence.
The sources allege Bilderberg was the direct source of the European Economic Community, EEC, the precursor to the EU, implying major geopolitical shifts are orchestrated in these private gatherings. They're depicted as an unofficial CFR expanded for international scale.
And the Club of Rome, another one.
The Club of Rome, formed 68. Fewer CFR members, but the sources allege it reports to an even higher, shadowy entity called the Committee of 300, supposedly pulling the strings for the entire globalist network.
Committee of 300. Wow. And the Club of Rome's public face versus its alleged goal.
Publicly, they claim to solve the problematic pollution, overpopulation. But the sources assert the true goal is world peace through world government, dividing the world into 10 political and economic regions, echoing end times prophetic interpretations.
Finally, Skull and Bones, the Yale Secret Society. How does that connect?
Skull and Bones, portrayed not just as a college fraternity, but a crucial stepping stone to the CFR, Bilderbergers, and the trilateral organizations.
The stepping stone.
Its emblem, the skull and crossbones, is claimed to be the crest for the Illuminati. Its insignia, the flag of the Knights Templar, drawing these deep historical conspiratorial connections.
And prominent members.
Figures like George Bush Sr. and Jr., John Kerry are listed, suggesting a direct pipeline from this elite university society into the highest levels of government and global influence.
So the overall claim is
A complete infiltration of governments at all levels by Masons and other globalists, citing lists of U.S. presidents with alleged Masonic or globalist connections: FDR, Truman, JFK, LBJ, Nixon, Carter, Reagan, both Bushes, Clinton. The narrative suggests that regardless of party, these leaders were either participants or instruments of this wider agenda.
okay, so it's finance, government, but also the information we consume, how we're educated. There's a comprehensive propaganda machine described. Let's start with think tanks.
Think tanks, yes. According to the sources, primarily funded by Rockefeller foundations and similar entities.
Their functions.
Sophisticated propaganda divisions, expressly designed to influence and manipulate education and public opinion. A secondary, critical objective highlighted: degrade Christian credibility, viewing traditional Christianity as a barrier.
How do they supposedly operate?
The sources describe them concocting unsupported theories of deception, which are then, they claim, picked up and quoted by mainstream media as established facts, shaping public discourse, belief systems.
And the education system itself, also a tool.
Absolutely. Accused of systematically promoting socialism and globalism, actively working to de-Christianize the world's youth.
De-Christianize.
How? They point to figures like John Dewey, the educational reformer, as instrumental, allegedly shifting education away from traditional values, preparing naive minds for world union, curriculum, teaching methods, all supposedly designed to indoctrinate generations into a globalist, secular worldview.
A top-down reshaping of society. What role does the media play in all this?
The media is described as being targeted by the liberals commissioned by Freemasonry, claiming major outlets and personnel are bound by Masonic solidarity or ideological alignment.
To do what?
To support grandiose, made-up theories such as Darwinism and global warming, presenting these not as scientific or environmental concerns, but as manufactured constructs serving the globalist agenda, controlling narrative, suppressing dissent.
And these grandiose theories, Darwinism, Marxism, are they just ideas or integral to the conspiracy in these sources?
Definitely framed differently, described as Rex Deus's two greatest achievements, not independent movements, but a materialistic reframing of Freemasonry ideology.
How so?
Darwinism, for instance, presented as stemming from Darwin's hidden bias and devotion to mysticism, allegedly funded by the Royal Society specifically to dismiss monotheism, the idea of a creator god, paving the way for a materialist, Gnostic worldview.
And Marxism.
Also seen as a materialistic reframing of Freemasonry ideology. Figures like Trotsky, Lenin viewed as instruments for its implementation, stripping away spiritual belief for a purely economic political struggle that ultimately aids globalist control.
What about environmentalism? That's a huge topic today.
Yes, presented as the perfect platform to promote global doctrines and form a world organization.
Wow.
The sources contend globalist forces leverage strong emotions about the environment, using concerns like pollution, climate change to advocate for international regulations, treaties, ultimately a world government with broad powers.
Any specific examples?
Figures like Al Gore are mentioned as key proponents, depicted as pushing an agenda that's a front for globalist control. Organizations like the Gorbachev Foundation, its Earth Charter, cited as concrete examples. Consolidating environmentalism with the push for world government, framing crises as justification for centralized global authority.
Okay, we've covered the mechanisms. Finance, politics, propaganda. But what's the underlying belief system driving it all? The sources dive deep into Gnosticism, knowledge as salvation. How do they explain this ancient spiritual current and its relevance here?
Gnosticism, yeah, a prominent movement around Jesus' time. The sources present it as fundamental to this whole narrative.
Connecting it to.
Various ancient groups, Essenes, Manichaeans, Cathars, it's broadly described as global mysticism, suggesting this ancient hidden spiritual tradition is pervasive.
And a core Gnostic belief, according to these sources.
That Yahweh Adonai, the traditional god of the Bible, is actually Yaldabaoth, or the demiurge.
The demiurge, meaning?
An imperfect, often described as evil or brutal, creator god, who mistakenly or malevolently created the material world, and consequently enslaved humans and matter, trapping their divine spirits in flawed physical bodies.
So, if Yahweh is the oppressor in this view, who's the liberator, this completely flips the traditional narrative.
That would be Lucifer. He's portrayed by the sources as Satan, the great emancipator of Adam and Eve.
Emancipator.
The one who freed them from ignorance, from the oppressive demiurge. The story of eating from the tree of knowledge is reinterpreted not as a fall, but as gaining gnosis, that secret liberating knowledge, making them like gods. Lucifer in this telling is the true bringer of light.
And this gnosis, this secret knowledge, it's not for everyone, right? Tied to a specific lineage.
That's right. The sources claim a belief that each person of a specific race contains within his or herself a hidden seed of the divine, a spark yearning to be released from the material prison.
In this Gnostic race.
Described as the exclusive posterity of Nephilim, or posterity of Seth, offspring of light. Remember the Nephilim from Genesis 6, offspring of divine beings and humans. Here they represent a pure, divinely connected bloodline.
So salvation comes through.
Gnosis. Secret knowledge imparted by Gnostics. This knowledge religion grants immortality of the soul, allowing the divine spark to ascend, merge with the ultimate divine reality, not through faith or ritual, but knowledge.
This worldview clearly permeates the alleged conspiracy. So if Lucifer is the emancipator, what's his ultimate role? The sources call him the great architect and light bearer.
Yes. The sources claim Lucifer is the god who is Osiris, the Egyptian deity, also the all-seeing eye and the architect of the universe.
Architect, not creator.
Crucial distinction they make. Lucifer is an architect god because he created the universe from existing material, not ex nihilo, from nothing. This opposes the Judeo-Christian concept. From this Gnostic view, Lucifer shaping matter makes the universe his greatest, most perfect work of architecture, a testament to his intelligence.
And the light symbolism is central, appearing everywhere.
Absolutely. Light is presented as the core Masonic symbol for intelligence, information, knowledge, and truth, the very gnosis they seek.
Even a calendar.
Yeah, Anu Lucis, Year of Light. The sources claim it dates back to Lucifer's expulsion, maybe 4000 BCE, and phrases like 1,000 points of light, interpreted by the sources as an arcane metaphor for the promised 1,000-year New Age reign of enlightenment.
So the whole cosmology is inverted.
Completely. The Gnostic view presented positions Lucifer as a good god to whom a great wrong has been done, while the true god of the universe, Yahweh Adonai, is cast as evil and the devil. Lucifer struggles for humanity against the oppressive Adonai to bring true enlightenment.
And this worldview extends into the corporate world, too. The sources warn about certain corporate names or symbols.
They do, explicitly warning about organizations bearing derivatives of light, or Lucifer, claiming it's not coincidental. They cite Lucis Trust again with its original name, Lucifer's Press.
Any others?
Lucent Technologies, the AT&T spinoff. The sources note its solar serpent logo, linking it to ancient wisdom, occult symbols. Also, its former offices at 666 Fifth Avenue in NYC.
666. Right.
And its connection to Mondix smart cards, early digital currency, explicitly linking this corporate entity, its symbols, its location, its technology, directly to the end times prophecy of the mark of the beast and total control over commerce, suggesting the conspiracy isn't just ancient history, but embedded in modern tech and finance.
So the symbolism is claimed to be right there in modern institutions, tech. What about the serpent motif? It appears everywhere, ancient and modern. How do the sources connect it?
The serpent, or snake, Presented as a primary symbol of wisdom, enlightenment, and mysticism, directly linked to Genesis, where it leads Eve to Gnosis. Seen not as temptation, but a benevolent act of bestowing forbidden knowledge.
Connected to other symbols, too.
Yes, to Hermes' staff, the caduceus winged staff, two serpents, common in medicine. Also linked to Enki, Sumerian deity, lord of the sacred eye, often shown with a serpent spiraling a rod symbolizing creation, wisdom.
And the claim about its adoption by modern medical associations seems counterintuitive.
Yeah, the sources highlight what they call the curious adoption of the serpent caduceus by American, Australian, British medical associations, alleging it's not accidental, but a direct homage to Egyptian mystery schools, ancient snake brotherhoods, influential occult groups like the Royal Society Invisible College.
A subtle acknowledgement of occult roots within mainstream institutions.
That's the portrayal, indicating the deep reach of the conspiracy.
And the connection to the 33 degrees of Freemasonry, that number 33 is significant.
The 33 degrees are allegorically linked by the sources to the 33 combined vertebrae of the spine.
The spine, why?
It symbolizes the physical and spiritual path to enlightenment, to grail consciousness. The ascent, they explain, is from the sacrum up through the pituitary, culminating in the pineal body, the third eye, seat of higher consciousness.
So the number of degrees represents that inner journey.
That's the claim. A journey to unlock hidden potential, become like gods. The sources further link related words. Arcane secret knowledge. Arca, box chest like the Ark. Architecture, building, linking to Lucifer the architect. Archon, ruler, often evil Gnostic rulers. And the great architect of the universe himself, dwelling in the house of judgment called the Archeon. All about hidden knowledge, secret structures, ultimate architects.
Wow. It certainly sounds like a meticulously planned long-term operation, spanning millennia, touching everything. So if this conspiracy is so vast, so deep, what's the alleged culmination? The sources point to a false messiah.
They predict the arrival of a false messiah from Zion, identified specifically as Lord Maitreya.
Maitreya, the figure from New Age traditions, the coming world teacher.
The very one. This figure, they claim, will step out of anonymity at a pivotal moment, ushering in what the sources call a spurious millennium of peace.
Spurious peace.
A period of deceptive tranquility. This false utopia is chillingly described as a reincarnated Third Reich, directly linking it to Hitler's dream, implying a tyrannical global government disguised as peace.
And this figure is also seen as
the future Buddha, according to the sources, emphasizing his universal appeal, blending various religious prophecies into one deceptive figure.
And this false messiah, Maitreya, linked to specific royal bloodlines, right? The Rex Deus bloodline. The 13 families.
That's right. Strong emphasis on the Rex Deus bloodline, claimed descendants of Merovingian kings, maybe even further back.
Specific families named.
Yes, the Unicorn bloodline, linked to House of Stuart, the Habsburg-Lorraine dynasty, the Plantard family, alleged modern Merovingians. The sources claim these lines do link them back to Nephilim.
Back to Genesis 6 again.
Asserting these future rulers will cling to their ancient bloodlines as their source of authority, believing they have a divine right to rule based on this ancestry.
And the ultimate goal is recreate Atlantis. That seems incredibly ancient, mythological.
It is, but it connects back. The sources claim the conspiracy's ultimate goal is to recreate the Age of Enlightenment, the reincarnated antediluvian age of Atlantis, by reestablishing antediluvian rule.
A return to a time before the flood.
An age described as having advanced knowledge, technology, a different governance. The belief presented is that essential arts and knowledge, architecture, science, spiritual wisdom, trace back to Atlantis.
Any tangible links claimed?
They even claim Excalibur, King Arthur's sword, isn't just myth, but a key to Atlantis hidden in England. And America itself is described as the stepping stone to this new Atlantis, a global model for their ideal commonwealth, technologically advanced, spiritually unified.
And to usher this in, fateful discoveries are expected. Material discoveries. Revelations.
Both, it seems. Curious discoveries of secret knowledge from ancient figures like Nimrod, Hermes. These discoveries, they claim, will storm world opinion, validate the conspiracy's worldview, reveal hidden truths.
Where would these discoveries come from?
Specific locations mentioned. Secret chambers at the feet of the Great Pyramids and the Sphinx in Egypt. The legendary Hall of Records with antediluvian body of knowledge, also sites in England, Central America.
And what knowledge would be found?
This sparkling knowledge of Atlantis and Cain, Cain, the first murderer, often linked to forbidden knowledge, will allegedly include astonishing tech secrets like anti-gravity from Mu, another lost continent, advanced tech from a forgotten era that will revolutionize everything.
This sounds like it's building to a point of no return for humanity, where everything we thought we knew is upended. What's the final choice the terminal generation supposedly will face?
The sources claim humanity, this terminal generation, will be compelled to choose. Worship and follow the Antichrist, Lucifer, and their New Age religion. Or follow the alleged evil god of the Christians, Israelites, and Muslims.
Compelled to choose.
This momentous decision, they state, will be sealed by the mark of the beast, from Revelation. A literal or metaphorical sign of allegiance determining one's fate. A stark, unavoidable binary choice presented. No middle ground.
And this choice won't happen peacefully. The sources hint at a massive conflict.
Indeed. The duty-bound choice, as they describe it, will be punctuated by the forthcoming galactic war of rebellion.
Galactic war.
To free the inhabitants of the Earth from the oppressing Adonai and his angels. This implies a cosmic struggle playing out on Earth. Choosing the Antichrist is framed by the conspiracy's adherents not as evil, but as fighting for freedom against what they perceive as an oppressive, tyrannical, traditional god Adonai and his forces. This galactic war is portrayed as the ultimate climax of the Genesis 6 conspiracy, a battle for the soul and future of humanity. Hashtag tag tag outro.
So we've taken a truly deep dive today into an extraordinary body of source material, charting what it describes as the anatomy of a global conspiracy.
It's a lot.
Yeah, from the grand ambition for a Luciferian world government to the intricate layered network of secret societies, Freemasonry, Illuminati, Rosicrucians. We've explored their alleged historical influence, the hidden financial levers supposedly controlled by dynasties like the Rothschilds, the pervasive propaganda machine shading public opinion.
And at its core, we uncovered the underlying Gnostic and Luciferian philosophy that allegedly drives this entire millennia-spanning agenda, culminating, as the sources claim, in a false messiah and a final cosmic conflict.
This deep dive, again, was about thoroughly exploring this particular narrative, this body of claimed nuggets of knowledge or insight from the provided source material.
Our aim was simply to help you understand the intricate, interconnected story these sources present. A narrative woven through ancient myths, specific historical events, alleged actions of powerful families, operations of contemporary global institutions. It's definitely a story of hidden power, secret knowledge, and a predetermined destiny as they see it.
It's certainly a lot to take in, isn't it? It challenges us, I think, to consider the implications of such sweeping claims, to think critically about how narratives of hidden influence can shape our understanding of history, current events. Whether you find these claims alarming possibilities, elaborate theoretical frameworks, or just compelling fantasies, the sheer depth and interconnectedness of the narrative presented in these sources is undeniably thought-provoking. It paints a picture of a world far more controlled, far more directed than most of us might ever imagine.
And as we close this deep dive, let's leave you with one final chilling statement directly from our source material. A thought for you to mull over. It echoes the cyclical nature of this alleged conspiracy and its prophesied culmination.
Okay.
Quote, "What has happened will happen again. Nothing is new under the sun. We are certain to turn full circle and go back to our antediluvian heritage, where we will stand face to face and eye to eye with the ongoing generational Genesis 6 conspiracy. Only this time, the conspiracy will be thwarted forever."
Thwarted forever. So it suggests a constant struggle, but also, within the source's own framing, a prophesied ultimate resolution. Something to think about.